No mistake, this has cost you, the great British public, the tax-paying public, a lot of money to come to this particular decision. As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning. How are you? Nice to see you today. And as ever, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, this is really all about a sort of story that, when you think about it, earlier this year, alongside another TV revelation, that of the disgraced TV presenter Philip Schofield of This Morning fame. Well, everything was being ramped up, wasn't it? I mean, there's no two ways about it, you know. This one was very, very difficult, though, because this was the main lead presenter of BBC News, Hugh Edwards. Now, Hugh Edwards got caught out not very easily. He tried many things, super injunctions, tried to stop and squash the story, but eventually, as everybody knows, the media will find a way, and they got it out. And then very publicly, sadly for him, his wife had to come out and basically say, yes, this was the person in the news, and yes, we're dealing with it. Well, fast forward a few months, and exactly where are we? Let me explain. Hi, good morning. Neil Sean here. Nice to see you, by the way. Yes, I know, we'll have a wave. I know, I'm getting there. By the way, over here in London, in England, should I say, United Kingdom, I know one gets shot. But, there's been some documentaries about the assassination of JFK. Fascinating stuff, isn't it, when you revisit them, because, they're talking to people in the trauma room and stuff like that. You always get a bigger picture, don't you, once you get the bigger picture, as it were. And I don't know what, people in America who watch this show, thankfully so much over there, what your thoughts are. Do you believe there were more than one person? It's very difficult, isn't it, to tell when you look at the story. But what a terrible story, terrible situation, but that's the risk. I suppose these people put themselves up there in a position of power. And when you think about it now, he would have been encased, wouldn't he? Bulletproof glass and all that sort of stuff. You wouldn't have had that open situation. Do let me know, though. I am fascinated. Do you believe there were more than one person? Back as ever to your story of the day. Yes, this really all centres on the BBC presenter Hugh Edwards, and apparently he has now been told that after months and months and months of deliberation, that the main boss over at the BBC, Tim Davie, says there's simply no way back. Now, it must have been very difficult for Mr. Edwards. As I say, he was the premier prestige presenter of all major events on the BBC, including, of course, the likes of the Remembrance Sunday and, the state opening of Parliament, which wasn't the same without his dulcet Welsh tones. He is a consummate professional. He did incredibly well and rose through the ranks, did well for himself. And of course, one silly glib, some might say, a midlife crisis moment, and it's all over. Now, according to a very well-placed source, Hugh didn't want to leave. He thought there may be a slow introduction back, and of course, memories fade, people move on. But there are certain images plastered across the internet that make it impossible, particularly if you're doing something so severe as very dark news. This has not come, obviously, as great news to Mr. Edwards himself or indeed his family. But more importantly, let's not forget that this ongoing investigation has been at full pay for Mr. Edwards. He will leave the BBC with a very lucrative pension indeed. So while one might suggest the demise of his career is very sad, let's not also forget that it was his own wrongdoing, and more importantly, once again, the British taxpayer is having to foot a bill for an investigation, and more importantly, for a pension and full pay while this particular investigation was taking place. I suppose the lesson you might say about this story is this: finally, the truth will out. What a sad end to a career. There was still so much more to give, and while he claimed he was ready to retire, he certainly was not, planning to step down from being Britain's premier newsreader on Britain's premier independent channel. But for now, even the BBC seem to think enough is enough. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.